Yo, what is good, everybody? It is your boy Golden Falls, Golden What Ifs, whatever you want to call me, and I am back. This is a brand new What If. What if Tanjiro was a genius? And as always, if you guys enjoy, show some love, leave a like, leave a sub, leave a comment down below, all that good stuff. Hope you guys enjoy the video, and if you do, make sure to show some love to the video as always. Now, with that said, make sure to check the links in the description for the Discord, the Spotify, and all that stuff in between. And with that said, I don't want to waste much more of your time, and I want to get right into the what if. So let's get it. Tanjiro Kamado, well, he starts this story, well, quite a bit different than normal. And the whole reason why he starts this story quite a bit different is because the life of his family is genuinely better. And the reason for this is, even as a young kid, being such an intelligent person, it allows him and his family to kind of get things that normally they wouldn't be able to get. So, in terms of just lifestyle changes, extra like food, things that are like nicer and stuff along those lines. And he would definitely be able to help out many villages through his sheer intelligence and his genius in general. Being able to allow them to survive a lot easier, just get things a lot easier, and just in general be a lot better. Now, with that said, all of it does definitely change for Tanjiro in terms of benefits, stuff like that. But in terms of the normal, what happens in the story of Demon Slayer doesn't change all that much. Everything kind of goes to about the same, just like the lifestyles and stuff like that is probably just a little better. But at the end of the day, after all that is said and done, we would then have, Tanjiro be dealing with the normal story events of Demon Slayer, right? His family perishing, his sister being turned into a demon, and then eventually facing off with Giyu Tomioka. And the first time to really check out his genius is right here and right now. He's able to show off the genius ideas that he has in terms of actually being able to try to, attempt an attack on Giyu Tomioka. Now, that attack still does not work flawlessly, but it is a little bit better than his idea of throwing the hatchet in the air and stuff along those lines. It still works out pretty darn well, and well, let's just say Giyu is pretty impressed by this overall. And this would lead to Tanjiro kind of, getting Giyu to decide that they are worth saving, and that's exactly what Giyu does, right? He goes out of his way trying to save these two and send them off to Urokodaki, and that's exactly what happens, and that is exactly, what gets done. Tanjiro gets sent off, and so does Nezuko, to Urokodaki, and obviously those things ensue in a very similar way to normal. Now, we all know that there's a demon that eventually they have to fight or fend off, which is the temple demon, but Tanjiro's strategy against the demon is a lot better than normal because of how smart he is and how he's really going to kind of understand the battlefield to a certain extent. Now, I will admit, his genius in terms of combat prowess is not as good as his technical genius, right? In terms of him being a genius, yeah, he's learned a lot from, various different things and living life normally. But in terms of fighting like a actual swordsman, he doesn't know that much about it just yet. But his genius allows him to really excel even further when he gets a proper teacher, especially a teacher like Urokodaki. This leads to Tanjiro learning and figuring out things a lot quicker than normal. Yeah, his physical body has to catch up, but in terms of learning the proper steps, the proper swings, the proper, breathing style that we know of, I mean, he's able to really do this. He's able to get this done pretty damn easily. He's able to figure it all out, wrap his head around it. And even Urokodaki starts teaching him more than normal because he believes that Tanjiro will be able to handle it. And even if he can't do it right now, right here and right now, he'll eventually be able to do it, since his kind of intellect and his genius allows him to maintain and really understand everything that is kind of going on in like the general consensus of like being a demon slayer. And that's exactly what Tanjiro starts doing. He starts learning, starts preparing, and he does figure things out a lot quicker. And probably in, I would say 75% of the time, he would be at the point where he would need 100% in the original. Now, this would also lead him to having more time to train, because Urokodaki believes the more time he has to prepare, the better. And Tanjiro starts really understanding so much more than you would think, even diving into total concentration breathing constant and allowing him to actually master that before even going off to his final selection, which would be the true first test. But this true first test would not be that big of a test, because Tanjiro would be able to break down kind of where everything is, what's going on, and also like who and what demons are in certain areas. And in doing so, this is legitimately exactly what Tanjiro needs, and it allows him to basically analyze the entire battlefield and figure out where he has to basically take the battlefield to defeat all the demons within it. And before you know it, with like a day or two remaining, Tanjiro has every single demon in the final selection defeated, ex-nayed, killed, whatever you want to call it. And that's exactly what ensues. Tanjiro was able to defeat every demon within the final selection, and he's able to do so basically, you know, helping out all these other demon slayers and helping everybody in general actually, you know, not get full on ended in the grand scheme of things, because that's exactly what would have happened, right? Like, a lot of them would have perished. A lot of these demon slayers would have perished, but a lot of them, let's be honest, aren't that useful anyways. So yeah, they would perish, but at the same time, let's just say Tanjiro would be a big component of them actually living, or a big component of a lot of them actually living. And yeah, that's exactly what would ensue. Tanjiro would make it so that they would actually live, or a lot of them would actually live, and he would go on about his, well, like, you know, his normal kind of situation the exact same, heading off back to Urokodaki, you know, speaking with him, and also preparing his sword, or waiting for his sword to be prepared. And once all that is kind of collected and all that is, you know, brought together, it is now time for Tanjiro to embark on his first mission. But this mission, I mean, these missions, especially with his like higher level of water breathing and higher level of just breathing style in general, allows him to be just like kind of easily defeat this first swamp demon, like very easily, even without the help of Nezuko. Like, he doesn't even need the extra help of Nezuko to defeat the swamp demon. They're able to defeat, or he's able to defeat him without any extra help, and easily defeats him with total concentration breathing constant. And the reason for this is that makes him that much stronger. I mean, he legitimately is that much stronger off the jump because of how smart he is in terms of his learning, in terms of everything in between, and kind of figuring things out to a large degree. And that is exactly why this is so crazy for Tanjiro, because the genius part of things really helps him beyond comprehension. But you don't see the true genius stuff start kicking in and working into play until he goes to his next mission. He basically sees Muzan for the first time, but also meets Tamayo and Yushiro. And once he meets Tamayo and Yushiro, they start basically talking about various things they could do to figure out how to cure his sister Nezuko. But not only that, they're talking about various other things that Tanjiro actually is able to really chime in on, and also give her various different ways to actually, you know, allow herself to maybe utilize human blood differently, or not have to utilize human blood at all. Obviously, they learn about Nezuko being able to sleep for long periods of time, so he kind of brings that idea up, and even breaks down some ideas that he has had, like, kind of in his own head as well. And frankly, Tamayo is very impressed about how smart Tanjiro is. I mean, his IQ, his intellect must be on a totally different level. I mean, she has no idea if anyone like him really exists in terms of, like, just full-on intelligence and just genius. And it seems as if like she's really like, okay, well, this is interesting. And she tells him like, I want to talk to you more. I want to get more information, you know, out of you as much as I possibly can, because you must have a wealth of kind of knowledge that you could really give us and help us just better our lives and better other people's lives as well. And Tanjiro, well, he agrees to this and all this stuff, but eventually a ball would come soaring through the building and he would react to this. And being that he's a lot stronger and better in this case, he does defeat both of these demons pretty easily, even without much help from the other three. But at the same time, he has, you know, a little bit of the same issues from like here and there of what normally happened. But overall, he's able to defeat these demons that come the way of Muzan, and it's pretty obvious that Muzan will send them here. And after those demons are defeated, it is now basically time for Tanjiro to really put this idea of getting the blood of the 12 Kizuki into action, because that right there is something that Tanjiro knows he needs to get done. He needs to get the blood from the 12 Kizuki, and well, after meeting Zenitsu for the first time, he would get his chance to actually get blood from a former member of the 12 Kizuki, being that of Kyogai. Now, this fight in itself is a more difficult one for Tanjiro, but overall isn't that difficult because of just how much stronger he is and how much better he gets at like water breathing and stuff like that throughout this time, because the more he utilizes water breathing, the more he starts really understanding everything to do with it, right? We're talking legitimately everything. He starts understanding things, he starts figuring things out, he starts kind of just being able to break it down to an even higher degree than normal. And that right there helps Tanjiro beyond what you could imagine, because he's legitimately like helping himself kind of understand every little tiny inkling of water breathing to the point where he understands all of it. Like he understands legitimately all of it, and he's able to really break it down for himself and really kind of push the boundaries of water breathing even further, even trying to come up with new forms in itself. Now, he still kind of has his struggles here and there, and eventually he would obviously defeat the demons and also, you know, meet up with Inosuke as well. And after they get out of the area, there is a little bit of a squabble over Nezuko's like box, in which he tells Inosuke like, that is not like, that is my sister, blah blah blah, like that's not like your typical demon and all this stuff. And obviously Inosuke initially is like, no, like I don't believe it, I'm gonna fight over it and stuff like that. But Tanjiro's ability to understand fighting styles, learn how people, you know, interact and react and all this other stuff, he's able to eventually then defeat Inosuke like easily, and this would lead them to grouping up and joining together as a trio. Now, after taking a bit of a rest, this would lead them to Mount Natagumo, where this is where Tanjiro would find his first kind of challenge, just not the initial spider demon's family, because when he finds that all these other demon slayers are kind of hooked up to these like strings and these spiders, he's able to essentially figure out how to like save them, but also how to defeat the mother spider demon very, very quickly. And he kind of is able to give orders to Inosuke to an extent, because we all know Inosuke doesn't really like listening, at least not that much. But he's able to kind of order Inosuke just a little bit, kind of telling him, breaking down certain things and be like, oh yeah, like we should do this, we should do that, and this would be the best course of action. And eventually all those things would go pretty damn well, even defeating the father spider demon with a stronger Tanjiro, obviously Tanjiro being quite a bit more powerful here. They're able to defeat him, leading to Inosuke and Tanjiro and actually Nezuko fighting alongside each other to defeat Rui. Now, the fight isn't easy by any means, because Tanjiro barely is going to awaken the Hinokami Kagura, but his kind of intelligence, his genius, allows him to really and fully push the Hinokami Kagura further than he normally would have, really understanding that first form a lot more than normal, and really understanding sun breathing to a way higher degree, even though he knows very little about it as of, this moment. He might know very little about sun breathing as of this moment, but he is quickly picking up on it as the fight is continuing. And before you know it, the defeat of Rui would ensue, and they wouldn't even need Giyu Tomioka to defeat him himself. And Giyu would even arrive and see that they were able to defeat Rui and be pretty damn impressed. And he would be really, really intrigued at basically how Tanjiro and how they were able to do it. But at the end of the day, all that matters is that Rui was defeated, he was slain, and the rest of the Demon Slayers and all of them, they are basically pushed back towards the Hashira mansion because, well, let's just say they, basically don't like the idea of Nezuko or Tanjiro's sister being legitimately a demon. So they're like, oh yeah, that's not good, so we're going to bring them back. And the whole, thing with Kanao and Shinobu, all that still happens, and they get knocked out, sent to the Hashira mansion. Tanjiro gets put on trial basically for it, but eventually he would be told that everything is good because of Ubishiki, but also because of Urokodaki's letter that is sent saying that Giyu will put up his life, so will Urokodaki, and so will Tanjiro if Nezuko does hurt a human, and all that stuff, right? Same old, same old. And this would lead him to begin his rehabilitation training. And this right here is where things are going to start spiraling for Tanjiro, because his training is way more efficient. His training for Zenitsu and Inosuke, way more efficient. He's able to help them in a more proper manner because of they're in a training scenario now. They're not in a fighting, you have to fight to survive type of scenario. They're in a legitimate training scenario now. So they all three get drastically stronger for this, but Tanjiro more than anyone gets way stronger because he starts developing his sun breathing even further, not even needing the help of other people like Rengoku's family to learn more information, actually being able to utilize and figure out sun breathing even further and be able to learn how to properly use it with his body, way easier, way better, and probably to a way higher degree in fact as well, where he doesn't, I wouldn't say abandons water breathing, but I mean, the Hinokami Kagura, the technique itself is almost mastered at this point because of how much Tanjiro is able to excel at sun breathing in such a short amount of time. Even though it's only been 3 months or something like that, along those lines, it hasn't been that long, and he still wants to learn more about it, so he does head off to meet up with Rengoku. And this is when they would basically find the Mugen train, and Tanjiro would actually figure out what's going on with the Mugen train before things even go go badly. He figures out what's happening, what Enmu is doing, putting people to sleep, and he's able to solve and crack that code before anybody would even get put under. And eventually they're able to defeat Enmu pretty easily with the help of Rengoku and many others. But Tanjiro's outclasses Enmu. He outclasses him by a mile, so it's really not a difficult thing for them to figure out, and really not a difficult thing for them to kind of ensure the defeat of Enmu, because, well, Tanjiro is just that much stronger at this point. And the real difference would be with Akaza, because Tanjiro is not strong enough to face off with Akaza. And yeah, the defeat of Enmu was easy, but Akaza himself is no freaking joke. But there's something else, or something, that needed to really be broken down, and that is him watching the fight of Akaza, because he is watching this fight intently, and he's watching it to its highest degree, and he starts understanding, he starts learning, and he starts figuring out what makes Akaza tick, what makes Akaza so powerful. So yes, he doesn't have an effect on the fight and can't help Rengoku in surviving this fight with Akaza. And frankly, Akaza or Rengoku would have had a better chance just living on his own than if Tanjiro jumped in, because Akaza hates Tanjiro, genuinely hates him. So he did have a better chance just living on his own. But at the same time, he would still be defeated or Rengoku would be, Akaza would still get away, just barely, as the sun would be rising. But the thing is, this would be a bad thing for Akaza, because, well, Tanjiro just downloaded some ideas basically from him and basically figured out what makes him so damn powerful. And that right there is something that definitely will basically come back to bite Akaza in the behind, because he has no idea that Tanjiro is going to progress faster than you could imagine. Now, Tanjiro does still get information from Rengoku's family, gets a bit more training, recovery, and all that stuff, right? Some extra missions with Inosuke and Zenitsu, and their training has gone to be very, very fruitful. And Tanjiro's ability as a sun breather is almost at its peak already. So when he goes and he faces off with Daki and Gyutaro in the entertainment district, standing basically side by side with Tengen, this fight is a lot more in the favor of the Demon Slayers. I mean, obviously, right? Because Zenitsu and Inosuke are stronger. Obviously, we have the one and only Tanjiro being drastically stronger than normal. But on top of that, we have basically Tanjiro, who has the ability to actually awaken the Demon Slayer mark before you know it, and that's exactly what happens. He awakens the Demon Slayer mark against Gyutaro as Tengen and Tanjiro face off with Gyutaro as Inosuke and Zenitsu fight against Daki. And as this is happening, they awaken, or Tanjiro awakens, his Demon Slayer mark, and this would push the boundary of what he can do personally to a degree beyond the imagination. I mean, he is at a very, very ridiculous degree, even kind of like figuring out other ways to utilize the Demon Slayer mark, fully awaken it, and or kind of like understand it, how other people should awaken it and stuff like that. Like, he legitimately is able to unlock, figure out, and kind of understand everything that is to do with the Demon Slayer mark itself. Now, with all that said, and with all that done and dusted, obviously Tengen still decides to retire, but this Tanjiro Kamado fellow is definitely in the ballpark to take over right now. And that's exactly what he does, becoming one of the first in a long time sun-breathing Hashiras. And Tanjiro basically takes the mantle from Tengen and becomes the Hashira of sun-breathing. And they all know that Tanjiro's level has increased so ridiculously, but throughout this time he's also working with others, getting stronger, training with various other Hashira to prepare, and just getting himself ready to go. And when he enters the Swordsmith Village and faces off with trains there, faces off with Muchiro, and also faces off with the eventual demons that show up, being that of Hantengu, the fight goes a lot better than normal, and Tanjiro is able to come up with a pretty good plan and also figure out what Hantengu is really all about, so that they can take him down a lot easier than normal. But on top of that, I mean, Tanjiro is more than prepared for this fight in general, but it would still lead to Nezuko conquering the sun, and Muzan believing that this right here is the moment that will change it all. Muzan believes that this moment of Nezuko awakening the ability to conquer the sun can make it so that he can be immortal forever, and he can truly become the greatest being to ever exist. But Tanjiro seems to be definitely on the wavelength of stopping this and believing that they genuinely can do something about this. After these events, it would eventually lead them into the Hashira training. And as the Hashira training would ensue, Tanjiro would train with various Hashira, but also would be a Hashira to help others train as well. I mean, his ability, his skill, all of the above, and his genius helps them to a large degree. Even with Shinobu, her poison and all that stuff, he even finds other ways to actually make her poison even more potent. Initially, she was hesitant, like, what do you really know? but he starts really analyzing the poison, figuring out various ways to make it even more powerful, and various ways to do so much more for Shinobu herself, especially in terms of replicating the actual cure for, you know, becoming a demon. And in doing so, Tanjiro's able to basically mass produce this, at least not, you know, mass produce it to a certain degree. Like, they're able to get even more than normal, and this allows them to really be way more prepared into the up and coming Infinity Castle. Because when the Infinity Castle ensues, well, Shinobu is actually able to do a lot more with her poison. No guarantees with her living or dying or anything like that, but she's able to do a lot more with her poison. But on top of that, they're able to be a lot more prepared in terms of training going into the Infinity Castle. Because when Tanjiro and Giyu face off with Akaza, they already have a plan that Akaza knows nothing about, but an idea that Tanjiro believes is the truth. That, well, Akaza can basically sense fighting aura and or killing intent, and it seems as if they are able to hide it, his reaction speed and his ability to kind of figure out where things are coming from in terms of punches, kicks, slices, and all the above, it seems as if it makes it a lot more difficult for him to react to this. And he tells Giyu that no matter what happens, no matter the anger that he has, the want and desire to end this demon, you have to understand, you have to hide it, you have to cloak it, and it's going to be difficult, but if you do just enough, it will give them openings to actually take him out. And that's exactly what happens. Because yes, Giyu is enraged by the idea of Shinobu being critically injured, almost dead, if not already dead. And when he learns about this, he's fighting with such a passion beyond just a fighting aura. It's anger, it's want and intent to kill. And at the end of the day, that gives Akaza the advantage. But with Tanjiro's ideas and everything that's happening, all it takes is one moment. And that one moment allows for Tanjiro and Giyu to get the upper hand, hiding their auras and hiding their, their wants to actually end him. And eventually that would basically help in the defeat of Akaza, and Akaza would fall victim to both of them in a pretty quick succession, and with a lack of injuries on the on the side of Giyu and Tanjiro. So much so that obviously when he is gone, he takes the idea of like coming back as a disrespect, like he shouldn't come back, but also is convinced by a loved one in the afterlife to stay with her and to basically give up on this kind of escapade of defeating and being the strongest, defeating everybody and so on and so forth. And he decides to, go away, go on to the next life and not follow the path of Muzan as he saw basically that he wanted Akaza to do so. And eventually that would be the end of one of the strongest demons there, Upper Moon 3, and the rest would be up to the various other demon slayers that are fighting for their absolute lives. Now, with all that ensuing, and as Tanjiro tries to find his way around, he hunts down where Muzan is, and Tanjiro and Giyu are on the scene for Muzan Kibutsuji. And Tanjiro, without any hesitation, would basically start just going for it, right? He would be going for it in terms of defeating Muzan. And this version of Tanjiro is not only breaking down the fight, understanding the fight, but also figuring out his movements, and on top of that has a even greater understanding in terms of movement of sun breathing that you could possibly imagine. So he's able to get the upper hand on Muzan on multiple occasions, and on top of that is able to show off an ability that Muzan is not understanding, that he does not get at all. He's thinking to himself that it doesn't make sense that such a mortal, somebody who is a human, is able to basically interact with him in such a way. Tanjiro's genius is showing to an insane degree. And this version of Muzan is even weaker because of basically the poison and the cure and all the above that Tanjiro himself has made even stronger because of his genius intellect. And eventually the defeat of Muzan and the safety of everybody on planet Earth would be ensured, with Muzan being defeated as the sun would rise, and Tanjiro Kamado standing tall and being a absolute factor in the defeat of all the demons that have been basically trying to conquer this planet for years, hundreds of years on end. And it seems as if Muzan's failure ends right here and right now, not with the greatest demon slayer alive in Yorichi, but just a smart kid known as Tanjiro Kamado, a kid that brought a genius level intellect to this world and brought genius to the demon slayers and allowed them to get that extra upper hand on the demons that they wouldn't have if he didn't exist in the first place. But if you guys enjoyed, show some love, leave a like, leave a sub, leave a comment down below. This is the end of What If Tanjiro Was a Genius. And if you guys enjoyed, like I said, show some love to the video. And I hope you guys enjoyed the video. And yeah, that's all I got to say. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. And I hope all y'all have an amazing day. Later.